Thank you, Councillor Troster. Councillor Menard.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I have significant concerns about this motion, and I was surprised that it was being raised here at the municipal order of government in the capital of our country, where advocacy, protest, and civil dissent are most welcomed and encouraged as a form of free speech in challenging policy or proposed legislation. That's a time-honored tradition of respect for freedoms that have been hard fought for, like freedom of assembly. And there's a real risk that if we allow this to fully expand, the civic spaces that everybody in Canada can use to speak up and freely dissent and express ideas will slowly shrink. The questions you have to ask yourself is protesting religious authorities or residential schools or long-standing abuses now a non-starter within 100 meters? What about students protesting their school administration? What about protesting private long-term care facility owners whose negligence may have cost the lives of our elders? What about the rights of workers to advocate for new workplace rights, which somehow we say will be okay? Well, I don't like the idea of the municipality being an arbiter on this, nor do I like the implication that a zone would be created that completely insulates a meeting place, let's say a so-called vulnerable social infrastructure meeting place hosting a non-religious event for the sale of weapons of war, from any exposure to protest. And Mayor, this is a motion that doesn't just ask for investigation, it promotes and advocates for a bubble bylaw being implemented. Read the motion. The motion requests the feasibility of, and I quote, implementation of a bubble bylaw similar to Vaughan's, where there is a $100,000 fine that hasn't been challenged and resolved in court, and where the municipality has de facto become the arbiter of what restricts people's rights to free expression, association, and assembly, which is fundamental to who we are as Canadians. There's a reason why so few cities have this on their books. It's rightly considered an infringement on rights. Authorities already have the tools to deal with this. And indeed, our own authorities have been working on this without this motion. There are laws on our books against intimidation, inciting or promoting hatred, threats of violence, harassment, and other abuses the motion talks about. In some recent protests, offenders have been charged. There are also laws that protect healthcare workers from intimidation, which is fundamentally different than what we're talking about here. My view is this proposed bylaw would be an expensive and ineffective move. It would do little to solve the so-called problem. No government, let alone municipal government, should want to put itself in a position to be the arbiter of which protests are acceptable, where, and which are not. If there are acts of protest or civil disobedience we agree with, there are better ways to deal with them and confront them than considering how the state can criminalize them and fine them. That should always be a last resort. I'll be a dissenting vote on this item today, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Menard. Councillor Devine.